Hey y'all, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brandy and I'm a faith-based health coach, and I help my clients balance discipline and grace in their fitness journeys. And I'm also a graphic designer because I love creating. And today we're talking about something that gets people heated: macro tracking. Should you do it? Should you not do it? Is it obsessive? Does it actually work? And here's my hot take on macros, is that they do work if you do it the right way, and only if you use them the right way. And a lot of peeps are out here wiling out, doing it wrong, being confused, or giving up on it. And I've been tracking my macros personally for over 7 years now, and it's one of the most freeing things I've ever done on my health and fitness journey. Now, I understand that process isn't for everyone, but it's been great for me. But I've also seen it become a prison for so many other people. So both sides are valid. And in today's video, we're breaking down the good, the bad, and the sis, put the scale down and chill out of macro tracking. We're covering why most people fail at tracking, the difference between awareness and obsession, who should and shouldn't track, and how to actually use this tool without losing your mind. So if you ever wondered if macro tracking is for you or if you should try it again, then this video will hopefully help you out. So let's dive in. All right, let's start with the hard truth. Most people who start tracking macros usually quit within a few weeks. And it's not always from laziness or not feeling like it, but because they've approached it the wrong way from the start. Doomed from the beginning, as they say. And so here are the top 3 reasons why macro tracking might fail. Number 1 is starting with restriction instead of awareness. So most people download MyFitnessPal or pull up ChatGPT, and they plug in lose 2 pounds a week, and suddenly they're eating 1,200 calories and feeling like they're starving. They're not really learning about the food they're eating or their bodies. They're just kind of white knuckling their way through the day or through the week until they get a cheat meal of some sort, which then might turn into a cheat day or a cheat week or a cheat month, until finally they're right back to where they were before they started trying to track, or they're even worse off because maybe they've gained weight because of the immense restriction they were under in the beginning. And if you've been there, then you already know that's not sustainable. It's just cruel and unusual suffering. Reason number 2 why macro tracking might fail is when a person makes it their whole personality, or they make it an idol in their life. And maybe you know this person. They're weighing lettuce at the office potluck. They have a fridge full of meal prep chicken and rice with no seasoning. Or they're having a full breakdown because the meal at the restaurant didn't have the nutrition information. And listen, I actually love data, but if tracking your macros is making you anxious, antisocial, or depressed, or obsessed, then you've definitely crossed a line. And I can understand if you're like a bodybuilder, but most people who I've talked to who fall into this category, they're not bodybuilders, okay? A third mistake is that the person never really learns how to eat intuitively. So macro tracking, it can just be a season of life to help you for a certain period of time. It's not a life sentence. It's really supposed to help teach and guide you. So if after 2 years of tracking macros, you still don't have a good understanding of portion size, what your body thrives off of, or if you can't recognize when you're hungry versus bored, then we have a problem. Again, the goal is not to track forever. The goal is to really use tracking as a teacher or a guide to help you feel confident in doing this on your own. The goal is for you to eventually trust yourself and your eating habits and feel confident. So if those are the reasons why people fail, then what are the right ways to do it? Let's discuss. Here's the thing, there's a massive difference, between awareness and obsession. Massive, okay? And you really need to know which side of that line you're on. Awareness looks like tracking your food to understand patterns, to get some data. You might notice, oh, I'm not getting enough protein. Or, oh, this latte is 450 calories. Had no idea. You use the data to make informed decisions. You're consistent, but you're not rigid. And if you don't track for a day, you're not spiraling. Obsession looks something like this. You're weighing everything, including probiotics and mouthwash. You feel guilt and shame if you don't hit your macros perfectly. You avoid social situations because you can't accurately track the food. Or maybe you're thinking about food and numbers constantly. Or you're more focused on hitting your macros than how your body actually feels or how your body is performing. This includes your energy, your internal organs, your blood work, and so on. And here's my coaching perspective. So if tracking your macros is making you feel more connected, more confident, more consistent with your goals, and more knowledgeable about data-based nutrition, then that's great, it's working. But if it's making you anxious or disconnected from your hunger cues, obsessed with perfection, and sending you into bot mode, then it's time to step back. And honestly, as I've coached people, I've learned that most people need to start with awareness and understanding what they're eating and how much, and then make the transition into intuition. And that just reinforces my point that tracking doesn't have to be forever, it's just there to help guide you. So let me tell you a little story right quick, because I think it'll help you make sense of what I'm saying. So before I started tracking macros, it was really easy for me to get a little bit lost or confused as to why things weren't working for me. Like if I had goals for my body, if I had goals for fat loss or muscle building or body recomposition, I would just get frustrated because I thought I was doing everything right with my food. I knew food was the most important thing, but I wasn't getting the results when I was putting in the work and the time at the gym. And so I wasn't sure if I was eating too much or too little, or if I was getting enough protein, or if I was eating the right kind of carbs. And even though I was eating healthy and working out, I was frustrated because things weren't working together in the way that they needed to work. And it's really frustrating when you're eating well and training hard and still not getting the results that you're looking for. So over 7 years ago, I decided to start tracking my calories and my macros in particular. And for the first time, Assist had data. I could see patterns. I could see negative patterns, and I could see great and healthy patterns in how I was eating versus how I was training. I could see that on the days I ate more protein, I felt fuller, I felt more satiated, I felt ready to kind of jumpstart the next day's workout and everything else I had going on for that day. And in a similar way, I saw how my body responded to different kinds of carbs and what kind of carbs I ate and the time of day I ate the carbs, how the carbs I ate impacted my training and vice versa. And of course, when I underate, my workouts suffered, my recovery suffered. When I started tracking my macros, I became way more concerned about getting my vitamins and my nutrients and my micronutrients too. All of this stuff happened over time, but as I gathered data by tracking my macros, I became more aware of how my body was responding and how I needed to make adjustments as time went on. And I'll be honest, there were times where I was a bit obsessive. If I couldn't know the calories and I couldn't know the macros when I was eating out or when I would be at a friend's house, it would make me sweat a little bit, okay? There were things Assist had to work through. And I did. I learned how to not make macro tracking obsessive and to use it as a tool to help me care for my body well. Because we all know obsession doesn't help your body when it comes to food. So I learned how to track consistently while also giving myself grace. Discipline and grace, y'all. Discipline and grace. And if I couldn't track everything perfectly because I was going out or with family, I just estimated the calories, enjoyed the meal, enjoyed my time with everybody, and then I kept going. I enjoyed the meal, estimated the calories, and got back to it the next day. Simple. Easy peasy. So for me, it was actually harder to not have the data. I'm someone who really does well with structure, routine, and curated information. Because of that, tracking helped me stay consistent and balanced. And I didn't have to wonder what I was doing or why things weren't working, and I didn't have to obsess. And because I like to have fun, I like little dashes of spontaneity and be creative and all that good stuff, tracking also helped me do that. I can enjoy the freedom I have in my diet and my social life. Ba-da-bow! And over time, I learned a lot more about my body and portion sizes. So I know what a serving size of tofu looks like. I know how much rice fills me up versus potatoes versus sweet potatoes. And I know that restaurants generally use way more than 2 tablespoons of oil in their food, okay? Usually they use a lot. They just dump it on in there, you know? They just dump it on in there. And I learned my eating patterns around when I'm bored versus when I'm stressed. Now, like I said, I've been tracking for over 7 years and I still do it because I don't mind it and it still helps me, especially as I'm shifting my training or changing the amount of cardio I do. But I also know how to eat intuitively, and I can do that well because I started out by tracking. I feel like that grow light is gonna go out soon. I'm watching you, buddy. Who should and shouldn't track? Well, we can set up some guidelines and then you can decide. All right, so let's get personal. So you should consider tracking if you have specific body goals. So whether it's losing fat, building muscle, or kind of doing a mix of both if you're trying to do a body recomp. Consider tracking if you genuinely have no idea how much you're eating. Maybe you're not seeing results and you need some data to troubleshoot. Or maybe you just like structure and data-driven approaches. And if you can approach it with curiosity and not judgment, then try it. You probably shouldn't track if you have a history of disordered eating or obsessive tendencies. Now, if just by my saying that you had a red flag go up, or if you had a strong check in your spirit, then you know you probably shouldn't track. And I understand that lots of people can have certain obsessive behaviors, but you'll know if this is you and you'll know for sure if tracking is not for you. Also, if you're just in a season of healing with your mindset around food, then it's probably not time to track right now. Or if for whatever reason you feel anxious or disconnected for your body, you might want to take a pause on the tracking. Also, very important, if you're only doing it because someone told you to, you might need to rethink it. You should track because you actually want to. You actually want to know what's going on with your food and how to make it work for your body. If somebody's beating you over the head with macro tracking and you honestly don't want to do it, then that's definitely not the time to do it. Or if you're using it as a form of punishment or control, definitely not the time to do it either. Again, it's like a science experiment. These are data-driven decisions that we're making, and so it's key to not attach so much emotion. And I know it's not always easy to do that, especially if you're trying to heal your thinking around food. There's a lot of emotion tied up into some of these things that I'm talking about. So when you're ready to move forward from a space of being mentally and emotionally regulated, then you can consider tracking. And remember too, these categories can shift. So maybe right now tracking isn't for you, but in 6 months after you've done some work, after you've grown and done some healing, then it might be a helpful tool. Or maybe the opposite is true. Maybe you track for a season and then you learn what you need to learn and then you move on. There's no one size fits all answer here. You have to check in with yourself and honestly ask, is this serving me or am I serving it? Okay, so maybe you decided you wanted to start tracking. Here's how I would recommend doing it, so bust out your notes, peeps. Number 1 is start with awareness, not restriction. So you're starting to track your food. Don't change anything for a week. Eat the way you normally eat for a solid week. If you eating them cookies at night, you're gonna eat them cookies again. If you eat those little dark chocolate squares, put them squares into your macro tracking app. This is not the week to turn into a salad only chicken and broccoli sis, okay? This is the week to build your baseline. This helps you see your own patterns and gives you a solid foundation to start with. You know, it's like the control group or whatever in the scientific method, because we're scientists. Number 2 is set realistic macros. So don't go for some weird aggressive deficit, and definitely don't look at someone else's macros and just copy them. You have to start moderately because you want this to be sustainable, whether you're tracking or not. This is about you learning something new. So you could use a TDEE calculator to calculate your total daily energy expenditure, or you could work with a coach. You have to find numbers that actually make sense for you and your current activity levels. And this is exactly what I do with my clients. And I would not recommend using ChatGPT at this stage. Step number 3 is focus on protein first. So when you're figuring out your macros, focus on hitting your protein target first based on your TDEE, and then let your fat and carbs kind of fall into place from there. And don't stress about being perfect with every single macro every single day. And figuring out what percentage of macro to put where, this is generally where obsession can start, but don't fall for it. This leads into step number 4, which is to give yourself grace. You are not going to hit your macros every single day. It's okay, especially if you're not a bodybuilder. If you're hitting your target 80% of the time, most days, then that's a win. Especially if you've never tracked before or if it's been longer than 6 months that you've tracked. Step number 5 is check in regularly. Every few weeks, be sure to ask yourself, how do I feel? Am I seeing progress? Is this still working for me? And if the answer is no, then make some slight adjustments or consider leaning into accountability instead of continuing to do it on your own. Now, if you've been tracking and seeing success and you want to stop, here's how to do it without losing the progress. Step number 1 is start with one meal at a time. Very important step. I knew that grow light was gonna go out at any minute. He gone. So stop tracking breakfast maybe, but then keep tracking lunch and dinner and snacks. First, you've got to get comfortable eating that one meal intuitively. Then gradually expand to the other meals. Now it's important here to be consistent with your portions. Now you might not be weighing everything out and tracking everything in an app or in a journal, but at this point, you should be able to eyeball your portions and be honest with yourself when you're eyeballing things on your own. Because a lot of times people think 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is like a half cup, and it's really not. 2 tablespoons is like, not a lot. So obviously keep your portions the same. Make sure you're still eating whole, healthy foods, because this is not an excuse to start eating crazy. But at this point in the game, hopefully you would know that. And it's actually a good test of your mental and emotional health around food as well. Step number 2 is try out the plate method. So the plate method, it's less tracking on an app or in a journal, and it's more so using the visual representation of your plate to kind of divide up your food. You know how those little kids, they have their plates and then it's all like sectioned off, so they got their little apples here, then they got their little macaronis there. And you know, it's all in its own little section on the plate. Think of it kind of like that. And if you want to make it really simple, you can just really divide your plate up into 4 little sections, and then you can have 25% each of starchy veg, non-starchy veg, protein, and fats. So you end up having about half carbs, the starchy and the non-starchy, and then half of it is going to be your protein and your fat on the other side. But it's 25% of each little section. And it's a simple visual guide that doesn't involve any kind of numbers, but it can help keep you consistent and kind of automatically does portion control for you. Now just don't go packing your plate super tight with each of those things. Then you're not being in integrity with yourself. So your plate should look about the same with the plate method as it did when you were tracking your macros on an app or in your journal. Don't go smashing a whole bunch of food into one plate and say you fit it into the little 4 sections. That's not going to work. So just be honest with yourself, be in integrity with yourself, take care of your body, and just know that the plate method is a really simple way to balance things out if you don't want to track. Step number 4. Nope, it's 3. Step number 3 is check in with your hunger cues. Before you eat, just ask, am I really hungry? Did I drink enough water today? And then after you eat, ask yourself, am I satisfied? Or am I stuffed? Or did I not eat enough? Relearning these cues can take time, so be patient with yourself, but take note of how you're feeling as you go through this process, because you'll need that information when you're doing a check-in later on. Step number 4, and this might be the hardest for a lot of people. I know this step is hard for my clients when I'm working for them, and that is trust the process. So often I see people start something that's really great, they have an awesome plan, and then if they don't see progress in like 2 weeks, they want to change everything. That's not going to help. The more variables that you throw into this process, the more confusing and frustrated you're going to be. And tracking macros is supposed to take the frustration and the guessing out. And remember that your weight might fluctuate as your body adjusts. This is especially true depending on the kind of training that you're doing. So if you're training really heavy, or if you're doing a lot of cardio on top of your training, your body might be holding on to some inflammation. If you don't take rest days, or if you're not drinking enough water, if you have pre-existing medical conditions, things will fluctuate. We fluctuate naturally, so just adding in more things or changing things up too often, it makes the whole process more complicated. So you want to try to stabilize as many variables as you can. Or maybe you enjoy tracking, but you know you don't want to do it forever. At this point, if your body starts to fluctuate, you don't necessarily have to panic and go back to tracking if you don't want to. Give yourself at least a month to settle in, especially if you're female, because you know we have to go through all them cycles, y'all, if you know what I'm saying. All right, friends, here's the bottom line. Tracking is a tool, not a rule. It's not a moral obligation. It's just a tool. So whether you macro track or not, don't let anybody out here make you think that you're wrong for how you're stewarding your tempo, okay? Because they out here. Macro tracking can be incredibly helpful for some people in some seasons, and it can be incredibly harmful for other people in other seasons. The key is knowing yourself, knowing what God has called you to do in this season, being honest about where you're at, and using it with intention, not obsession. And if you found this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. And if you want even more support, including free coaching, live events, masterclasses, and more, then be sure to opt in to my free VIP email list at revealedhealing.com/VIP. I send out weekly tips, encouragement, and practical tips to help you balance discipline and grace in your wellness journey. Drop a comment and let me know. Do you track macros? Have you tried it before? What's been your experience? I'd love to hear from you. And that's all, peeps. I will see y'all in the next video. Bye! Okay, we're done.
Stop it, stop it!
Stop it!